little bit
Perfect.
too early for me. I've just knocked off work, so.
I don't know. I disagree.
Yes, yeah. Well,
Okay.
depends on how stressful the missus is. Sorry.
All right, kids.
Enjoy your day.
I'm hitting the go button because I'm like 3 minutes late.
Why are you late?
I know.
You're pulling a Mark.
Pulling a Mark. Yeah. So I'm pulling after Mark and starting a couple of minutes late today. Fashionably late is what I'm going for. So welcome, guys, to the Wednesday night live stream. Today we have on Mr. Mark Levinson and Mr. Rookie Reefer.
Howdy.
So we are going for the worldwide live stream today, and in the good spirit of Halloween, we're talking about kind of eye candy corals and what are like, kind of the sweetest, the prettiest, and what are the scariest in your tank. So it's gonna be all kinds of different kind of talk about corals today. I figure it's a good little crowd to mix her up. All right, how are you boys doing today?
I'm gonna let the rookie start. Go ahead.
I'm very, very well. I'm actually prepped and ready for the day. You guys look like you are quite rather ready for bed, being that Mark is just pouring up a drink. So we'll take it easy for the day, just see how everyone's going. Welcome all. Good to see everyone. Mark.
Hey guys, I'm glad to be included. It was funny. He was saying, Devin said we need a topic. And I said, well, the one I've got is eye candy because candy is dandy. But Devin took it even darker and said, what corals scare you in the title? I was like, all right, that's pretty good too.
Yeah. Hey, it is Halloween, right? We got the creepy, the spooky, the sweets.
I know.
Seems very appropriate.
Eye candy. Okay, Rookie, question.
Candy.
Before we even started, you said you had some kind of good story recently about something scary in the coral realm.
Let's wait till there's a few more people here for that, because it's a good story, but it's only short. And
okay.
So we'll leave it for a little bit. Let's just start talking about. So what's your scariest coral that you would have in your tank?
My scariest. Okay, there's a few different things on that one. Part of it would be, I'm gonna almost say the meanest coral, because they're not scary per se to me, but they're scary to corals around them. I know, like for instance, one of my newest corals, the Space Invader. That thing is brutal. How long those tentacles come out. Like that thing is not a friendly coral. So a couple of them are kind of scary in this fact where you have to do it. I know a lot of people are afraid of zoanthids, because of the whole paleotoxin thing. Personally, I've never overly worried about it. I know some of them can have paleotoxin. There's no necessary way of knowing which ones aren't for sure. I mean, some of the paleos are a little more likely to be so, but that's one that I'd say a lot of people are like, no, I'd never have those in my tank. I'm like, I'll take them. Thank you very much. So.
Until
the scariest
recently,
coral I ever came across was one that cost a lot of money. Because if you spend a lot and it dies, that's scary.
This is true. That's stuff nightmares are made of. Not technically a coral, but tube nems in the chat from G-Day Reefing. Galaxia, hands down. Dendros is scary. Actually, I love dendros. They're really cool. Apparently, somebody was telling me that you can't collect dendros, or you're not supposed to anymore, or something like that. I'm like, yes, I have one. Gotta keep that baby alive forever now. But yeah, so I don't know how true that is, but it's kind of interesting random fact. Now, one thing that would scare me, which is funny, is corals that grow too fast. And actually, Tina just posted pulsing xenia. So xenia is one of those lovely corals that everyone that's new likes it. It moves, which is cool. Even I like it. But it can take over your tank, and it can take over your rockwork. So it's one of those things where you kind of gotta, with caution. And that's a lot of these kind of like beginner corals, like something, or GSP, for instance, same thing, pulsing xenia. Everyone has them. They're hard to kill for most tanks. And yet, put it in the wrong spot and it can take over everything. So to me, that would be scary.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because it depends on what qualifies a coral as to be scary in your kind of opinion. Because there's, as you said, Mark, cost can be a factor. Mm-hmm. As you just said, Devin, your story. I would more so say the kind of viability for pests to live on that animal. Mm-hmm. So personally, acorn colonies are one of my favorite corals, and yet they come with a plethora of different pests. They'd have to be one of my scariest corals, I would say.
Huh. So what are the pests you encounter? Because it's acans grow in Australia. So I mean, let's hear the horror stories.
You're in the land of the acans.
I
Well, it's
know.
more
Let's hear it.
it's more so, I suppose, not so much anymore, but when I first started in the hobby, I was scared of anything that touched me. So anything that was live and kind of poked and prodded at me, it was going out of my tank. It was getting burnt with fire, at least for the first kind of year. But the more I grew to know the system, the less naive I became, I suppose. There's only certain pests you have to stay away from. But as I was just kind of mentioned before, just a plethora. I have had probably at least 15 different pests come in acan colonies now.
Really?
I haven't actually, from like kind of one not from one colony, but say I'll be fragging up on my bandsaw and I'll have 3 colonies there. So within that 3 colonies, definitely I'll find like 12 different things and be like, what the hell is this? There's glowing things, there's prickly things, there's all sorts of scary things. So
Yeah.
that's my take.
Okay, wait. So what all have you had for pests on acans? Because they're not one that I normally consider carrying a lot of pests with them.
You've got to remember, it's more so in the skeleton. So being acans do generally, an acan colony will come with a rather large base of skeletal base. In that skeletal base, there is a lot of chance for things to hide. You've got boring mussels. You've got all sorts of worms. You've got different sorts of starfish that can hide up in there. You wouldn't believe the things that can actually fit. Even if you've had a boring clam that isn't on the colony, that leaves a hole for something to hide in. So in general, things will take advantage of that for sure. As I said, I've literally found glowing stuff. I've cut up colonies and my fingers have been glowing.
I actually remember you posted a photo or a video of something that was like phosphorescent. It was literally glowing in your tank from something that came in, which is crazy.
Yeah, that would have been probably from an acan. They're one of the corals I find that house the most pests. That's for sure.
No,
I guess I should. Well, I'm sorry, Devin. I just wanted to say, I've heard. I refuse to accept, but I've heard that they're calling acans micromusa now instead of acans. So in Australia, are they calling them micromusa or are they calling them acans?
You really had to go there, didn't you, Mark?
I'm curious. What do you? How do you feel?
Look, anyone that knows anything, yes, the correct name is Micromusa ludhauensis, Micromusa, whatever.
Boo.
But specifically, I suppose there is the actual Micromusa, which is a different type of coral. So it gets a little bit technically difficult for beginners. So I think a lot of the times you can gauge whether someone's been in the hobby for a week or 4 years. And if someone's been in the hobby for 4 years, they should be able to know what a micromusa is. Whereas someone that's new to it, you'll call it an acan.
I see. All right, so I'm sounding like a newbie every time I say acan.
I use them both.
Yeah, you can kind of interchange them. It's no one's going to be offended, apart from maybe specific collectors. It's micromusa now.
I only know
for 3 years. Come on.
I only know one person that would be offended.
Yeah, I don't know any.
I know one only because I've commented before when I've called it that. They're like, it's micro. So then so sometimes I'll purposely call it that, like both just for entertainment.
It's one of them things where a lot of corals don't even get called by their scientific name at all.
Most of them.
Exactly. So why should we have to call that? So keep going with acans, Mark. That's fine. I still do.
Okay, good.
All right, so starting out, actually, okay, question from the candy side. What is your favorite coral, Mark?
Candy side, we got candy. Favorite coral. Oh, it's a great question. I've always loved Tubastria. I just love the sun corals, but you have to feed them all the time, and so I don't have any presently. I have a couple of dendropolyps. And Devin, you mentioned before you heard you can't get them anymore, and I keep hearing like it's illegal or something too. But I think if someone has already owned them and propagated them, you can keep sharing, but maybe they can't take them from the ocean. I'm not positive on that. That's one of those things where I was like, I'd love to know, but I don't because I get corals from hobbyists or from the fish store. So if it's illegal, I didn't know. I mean, I'm just shopping like anyone else would do.
Yeah, I think it's fine within like aquaculture. I think it's just harvesting it. It's what's it. Now, sun corals are one that a lot of people have issues with, where they are easy to perish if you don't feed them regularly. So dendros, if you can get them, I think are a much better option for people. because they're a lot easier to feed. They're open all the time. They're semi photosynthetic. Like there's just a lot more going for it versus a sun coral,
Right.
which unless you're dumping food in your tank on a regular basis can be challenging.
Oh, it can, because especially if you don't want to get your arm wet. If you're like, I don't want to feed that coral right now. I'll do it later. And then that coral is just starving quietly, waiting for you to get some food in the tank again. It
Hmm.
literally is, if you have a colony of like 50 polyps, not just one or two, you don't have to feed 50 mouths. You can
What?
feed 40 of them and the other 10 will get some. I mean, it works out fine. But if you fed like 2 polyps out of the 50, then you're going to have a whole bunch of die off. You're going to see them shrink in. You're going to see the skin start pulling away, and they will just deteriorate away. They actually must be fed. And in nature, in the ocean, they're deep down in caves in total darkness. And when you
Hmm.
swim into that cave and you look up at the ceiling and you got your flashlight, they're gorgeous. And there's thousands and that, well, I mean, I don't know, millions? I don't know. It's so many polyps. It's awesome, but it's a difficult coral. You can't just throw it in the tank and enjoy. It's going to take
Hmm.
effort to keep it happy.
Yep. How often do you feed yours?
Well, when I was doing it, I fed them every single day.
Okay.
What I do is I have a small little bowl that used to be an applesauce bowl, for those
Hmm.
samples that you put in a lunch pack. And I would melt some frozen food in that. And I, to this day, still use that bowl. It's just my routine. And I put
Nice.
in all my frozen foods, rods food, mini mysis, some PE mysis, some bloodworms. I melt that in salt water. And then 15 minutes later, I go around and I feed each of my tanks, and I would squirt some directly on the sun corals because they would open up because it was feeding time. They knew when I'd bring food. And so we had a good relationship. But
Hmm.
it's easier if you have like a small species only tank versus putting your main reef, because you can have a smaller cube of water and it's easier to reach in and reach out.
No, that makes sense. It's one what's kind of cool is that you can train it to open up in the daytime,
You
which you
can.
can't. Yeah, so you can kind of over time adapt it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right, Ricky, how about you, buddy? What's one of your favorites? What's one of your eye candy corals on your list?
That's a hard one because there's a lot of corals, but it's one of them things where it's like fish. There's a lot of fish I'd like to have, but I wouldn't be able to house them properly.
Hmm.
So
Now,
the corals that I'd like, I wouldn't be able to house
and why is that?
because they'd be as big as my car.
Fair enough.
I'm just
So
trying to stay on topic.
I'm jealous I don't have any candy now.
Me
I'm
too.
sorry.
Me
Do that
too.
all over again. I missed everything. I was being annoying.
He's got candy and Crown Royale. Jeez, I have to step up my game.
You're
This is
slacking,
how
man.
you do a show.
Apparently, so I wasn't aware. I'm out of the know. Look, I don't know. Acans have always been a special one in my heart, just because they're something I've started with. I've always had pretty good luck with them. I enjoy fragging them and seeing them grow. They're kind
Hmm.
of it's all well and good to frag up a Montipora or something like that and see growth. That is exciting. But when you actually frag up kind of some acans and you start seeing little polyps sprout off all around the side, each one's just like, yeah, it's like when you get that really expensive Zoa and you see a new head pop up, you're like, score, and then you lose one and you're like, oh. And then, yeah, you know how it goes.
It's true.
Yep, pretty much. All
But
right.
I don't know, I've been grown towards like the SBS, kind of more acros nowadays.
Hmm. What's your favorite on the SPS front? A certain type or a certain coral or?
Look, there's a certain coral that I've seen online, but I'm not able to get it. It's some
Hmm.
gold orange green looking Montipora. I don't know what it's even called, but
Oh, a sunset Montipora.
no, we've got sunset Montiporas over here, and we've got gold rush and all that kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
it's a specific, like, it just looks nuts. I don't know. I'm guessing it's a worldwide corals one or something like
Mm.
that. Jason Fox or something for probably $1,000 a frag, but
Yeah.
Something crazy.
yeah, more so the nicer Monties, I guess.
Speaking of worldwide corals, I'm going to be at their grand opening on Saturday. Should be fun
Ooh,
for the new
nice.
superstore. I know. I'm excited to go check out that giant lagoon tank.
Are you
I
going to
was
wear the orange glasses and bring your credit card, or are you going to be smart?
No, I got no money. It's all gone. But no, I was there. I did just I don't know if anyone caught it, but I did an Instagram live stream from there a month or two ago. Whenever I was in Orlando last, when there was under construction, just kind of doing like a little sneak preview, which was pretty cool. So it'd be cool to see it now that it's all finished. Okay, So back to the scary coral front. Paleotoxins. Do you guys worry about it at all?
I don't at all.
No.
I've never worried about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just smart enough to know not to kill myself. But it's just a matter of you have a coral of any kind, whether it's a acan or an acro or a monty or a zoanthid, and you handle it and you cut and you trim, but you don't
Mhm.
lick it, you don't inhale it, you don't let it squirt you in the eye,
You don't
and
cut
you
your
don't
finger,
take
then
your
frag with
right.
blood dripping from it?
Exactly. You don't have open wounds and you don't like handle the coral and then touch all over your face and into your mouth.
Mhm.
You just keep your hands out of your mouth and away from you. Go rinse them off. And I mean, I rinse my hands a lot. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's OCD, but my hands are never dirty.
Mhm.
And so if I work in the tank, I go rinse, and I work in the tank and I go rinse, and I just keep doing it. I've never ever had any weird symptom, which with palytoxin, you'll get like flu-like symptoms.
Mhm.
And I think the other thing is that people do silly things like try to boil them off rock or
'Kay.
blast them off rock or brush them off rock.
I've never understood, why do people boil rock?
Yeah,
Why would, like, where does that come in where you think is a good idea? What is the just reasoning behind this?
I don't know. I will admit, I did this only one time in my life. I had some sand that was covered in cyano and I siphoned it out. And
Yeah.
I'm looking in the bucket and I see sand with the red crap blowing around. I thought, I could probably boil that off and have nice clean sand. And so one time I did boil some cyano covered sand. And once it was all cleaned off, I put it back in my tank. But I got lucky, I guess. Nothing happened, or I had the vent going or whatever it was. But I agree. I don't know why we think that's the way to go. I think it's just because you hear how dentists and doctors will put their tools inside that little oven and they bake the heck out of it, whatever. I forget what the term is called. And so we kind of think boiling something makes it pristine.
Interesting. There
I'm
you
meant to
go.
be the one called Rookie Reefer here, mate. Just in case you weren't aware, Mark. You're
There we go.
boiling rock over there. Look, I think specifically it came from the term cooking rock. A
Mhm.
lot of people, when we cure rock, we call it cooking rock. I
Mhm.
think someone's taken it the wrong way. Chuck some rock in a bloody pot and
It's probably true.
Bob's yarn.
Yeah.
I never
I don't know.
understood why they called it cooking it either.
Yeah, no. That was just a term that stuck. Like
But
Mandarin Gobi.
Yeah. Yeah, I like
Dragon
curing.
Echo,
Curing.
yeah.
Curing is much better. Less
Cur-
easy to take the wrong way.
Yeah.
Curing makes sense though, right? Like
Yeah.
cooking, like I bet you that's what started it.
Well, I think the principle behind the idea of cooking was because this happened way back in the day, and I think it was maybe Eric Borneman that someone that wrote the article on it, and
Mhm.
it was the idea that you're simmering the rock. It's just simmering in the background. It's sort of like when you're making
Mhm.
a gravy and you just want it to like boil down and just simmer down. And I think that's kind of where it came from, or that was the analogy. He did other analogies that were great. Like he said, you need to have a lot of cows in your tank. He says, when's the last time you looked at a field and saw a lot of tall grass around cows? The more cows you have, the more smooth the grass is. And so he was saying you need a lot of cows, but that one didn't stick. No one's absorbed that one and loved it. But cooking, like, oh, let's boil some rock.
Rock for dinner, honey. Let's atomize some zoazol rat. Okay. Don't boil your rock,
Right.
especially if there's corals on it. And
Don't pressure wash it.
don't lick your
Don't-
corals.
don't
Gaber
lick it.
someone said in the chat. Those are words to live by. No licking your corals.
Yeah, and don't use a brush, because when you're holding the rock and you brush it, you're
Mhm.
actually atomizing it and you can inhale it. And if you're fragging and the saw is going through it and you're inhaling the fumes, you'll end up in the ER. And I have a friend that happened to.
Really? What
Yep, two
happened?
people were working together and they were fragging corals and they were just cutting on a saw and the saw was spinning, one of those band saws, and they were just breathing around it and they started feeling really bad. And they went to the ER and respiratory issues from inhaling the fumes of zoanthids.
Yikes.
It's
Gotta be
kind
careful.
of like use common sense, but isn't it? As Mark said before, don't
Mhm.
go licking your corals, don't go doing stupid things. I
Yeah.
think Mark specifically, when you said you don't worry about paleotoxins, you're like me. You have these guys right here.
Right.
Now these are
Yeah.
normally on our faces. So we
Right.
don't really technically think about it, but eye protection
Right.
is a massive one, guys. It's an easy path for things to get into. Zoas have squirted me in the face many times before.
Yep.
So that is one thing to be cautious of. I
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
personally watch paleotoxins too much. I'm
Mhm.
cautious for my animals, like more so my dog's always around me. If I'm fragging anything, she won't be anywhere near the area. You just gotta use your brain.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I
Common
agree.
sense. Goes a long way. Rogue
Yeah.
aquariums, and don't lick your fingers. Also wise. At least wash your fingers before you lick them.
Keep your mouth shut. Don't let things squirt in there. I always say that when you're fragging. I've watched people do it. They're like cutting a coral and they do this. Like they're, I don't know. They're just their
Just
mouth
hold-
is hanging
I've
open.
seen
Like
that too.
close your mouth.
At least hold your breath and squint. That's in the odds.
Some people
Or just wear
talk
safety
too much.
glasses.
Yeah.
No singing opera as you frag. No sol,
You know what else we could say, but anyway, we won't go there.
Yep. Eye protection is always a good idea. I mean, you guys wear glasses, you're safe. I have like yellow safety glasses that I just leave with my bounce on now. So if it's in the box with them, if I'm ever fragging, I just pop those on, which is good. Lots of people do wear gloves when they put them in the tank. That's something I've never done. But at the same time, if I have a cut or a wound or something, I'm not going to go stick my hand in the tank.
Right.
So a lot of that is common sense to an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so method. Pelly talking freaks the she's out of me. Still trying to figure out how to frag them off the main piece of rock. So ideally, if you can, cut underneath, if you want to get rid of a Zora or something on the rock, try and cut underneath it and take like a small layer of rock with it, whether it's a sharper scalpel or razor blade or saw, whatever you're doing. But if you can take off the rock with it, then you're not really cutting into it. It's less of a thought there as well.
I bought this tool. I like it a lot. That gets in there and it nicks right into the underneath the rock and can kind of dig in and chip off a little bit of rock, like you were saying.
Nice.
Well, I've got these and a bunch of like these and scalpels and stuff. Scalpels are the way to go, guys. Like the easiest way. Get your skin cutting blades. They're the long straight ones like that. And you'll literally go through. Well, it's what they're for. The thinner ones are for nerves and all that. Once they get inside, and they're
how do you know this?
My missus works in ER emergency, so
she just pretends to be a rookie.
her, but anyway, yeah. So it's one of them things. You'll go through a lot of blades, but these things are cheap. They're like they're $10 a box of like 100 or something like that. Corals aren't so cheap, so take your time, get kind of right underneath it. You'll go through, as I said, lots and lots of blades. It's something that's just going to happen. So that's the best way to attack it, I reckon.
Another big thing with that too is don't try and cheap out on your 5-cent blade. Use a new blade when you frag. If you have a rusty blade or something, that is something I've seen take out Zoas and stuff after fragging it. So it's always good to make sure you have a clean, fresh, sterile blade.
Okay, I got this story I got to tell you.
All right.
I was at a fragging demonstration, and the guy did the whole demo, and then he said to everyone, come on up and learn how to frag. So all these people walked up that were brand new to the hobby. And this one guy put on his rubber gloves. He put on his safety glasses. He put his zoanthids in the middle of his palm, and then he took a scalpel, and he was going to cut them. And I'm like, stop! And he was just like, what? I'm like, your palm is not a cutting board. You cannot do that. Stop what you're doing. Put it down and cut on the table. Oh my God. Talk about getting palytoxin the hard way. Slice through your palm. It's going to go right into your bloodstream.
Ay.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's that common sense thing.
I saved his life.
Some people just don't have it, do they?
He just didn't think it was risky, I guess. I don't know. He thought those rubber gloves were really thick.
Those like steel butcher ones, maybe I still wouldn't risk it. Just
meanwhile, he's wearing welding gloves. Like,
yeah.
Hands are not cutting boards.
Use your hand as a cutting board.
Yep. This is true. All right, rookie. I want to know the story that you said was good about something scary in coral.
Well, so it turns out about a couple weeks ago, so I've gotten the coral bug again. Recently, I sold off a lot of my corals, not so much on purpose, but that was the whole point of me getting into the hobby. I was going to frag things up, make it more accessible for local people to get smaller pieces, because I was sick of seeing new people kill things. So I got out of it for about a year. My phosphates got a bit high. I sold a bunch of stuff, so I'd been turned off it. Meanwhile, I built a couple tanks, so I got some more coral. So I got a bunch of coral, and my tank's actually quite full at the moment. So I've got 2 elegance corals sitting over to the side. Now, these were my first elegance corals. I'd never really had them before, and I haven't actually had anemones. So I'm cleaning my tank about a week in from having these corals, and I see one of the one of the elegants has a trochus snail shell in front of it. I'm like, you bastard! I'd heard they'd eat snails, but I wasn't sure how. So I went to move this elegance, and my missus had come in the meantime, and she was like, "Oh, how are the new corals going? All this," and she was behind me, just looking over my shoulder, and I'd placed my hand over one of the elegants, and it literally stuck to my hand. So meanwhile, I jerked my arm back. I end up elbowing my missus in the boob. She was off me for about a week straight. This coral comes flying out of the tank. It actually stuck to my hand, and I had to pick it up from the other side of the room. So that was a bit of a scary experience, considering I didn't realize that they could actually stick to you. So that's one thing we need to be aware of. I've fragged many corals before, just not sticky ones.
And you're sure that was an elegance coral and not a carpet anemone?
Those are crazy sticky.
It's about the size of a carpet anemone, but yes, it is an elegance.
Okay. All right.
Have you guys ever touched carpet anemones? Those things are like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever put a dead fish in one? I've seen that happen a few times at the LFS. They're gone in like 2 seconds.
Yeah. I got a couple of scary stories. This one was a dumb guy. Okay, so it's really dumb more than scary, but he was scared, which makes it great for us. So I read this a long time ago on a forum where the guy, I think he was high, but he just wanted to know what a clam felt like. So, so he had this clam down deep in his tank, and he reaches down to pet it. Of course, the clam didn't like being petted, so it slammed shut. And he freaked out, so he ripped his arm up, burned it on the metal halide bulb, fell off the step ladder, and I think there was a cat involved at some point too. It was the funniest story. I was like, why isn't there video of this? Damn it.
No security cameras you could like pull the video from?
It's too long ago. It was before we had those. All right, and then the other scary story was yesterday. I was at the fish store, and I was there much too long. And I mean, I'm lucky I got out with my wallet intact, because I saw 7 things I want to buy, and mentally I'm like doing $500, $7,000. Where am I at on this thing? And it's like, I have to get out of this horror house because it's going to take advantage of my wallet and kill me. So I might go back tomorrow, but he had some large chunks of acan. He had a yellow hammer. He had a really nice acro. I was like, kind of want this. Just go nuts this month and be done, But I got out yesterday. I was close.
How dangerous was it?
I'm telling you, man, I had to literally just bolt. I ran out the door. Terrifying.
It's okay. I may have got sucked into a bunch of LPS recently. There was one very, very beautiful rainbow trachea that I really wanted. However, it was a package deal of all or nothing. I may have acquired many pieces of lovely LPS.
Are they expensive over there? As expensive as over here?
Buying them singly, yes. I got a really good deal because I bought all or nothing. But yeah, like I just out of curiosity, somebody posted, or Big Al's is a place in Alberta, and they posted like a rainbow trachea. So I messaged him out of curiosity, I'm like, hey, how much is that? It was $650 for that one coral. I'm like, damn, I guess I got a good deal because I got a ton of coral for, a little more than that. So yeah, it was good. I got a good deal. But yeah, they can be crazy. But I wanted that rainbow one for so long. Every time I see it in someone's tank, it's like the one that draws your eyes and sucks you into it.
It's funny you mentioned that coral. That is the one I bought from this same fish store years ago. I walked in there and I saw it. I was like, oh my God, I need that coral. I don't care what it costs. And he just bagged it up. Then I went to the register and he told me what it cost. And my jaw kind of hit the counter. And I'm like, it's in the bag already. Dang it, And so I was like, here's my card. That one cost me, and this was a long time ago. That one cost me $325. I think that was the most expensive coral I've purchased.
That happened to me recently. I was down at a show, Reef Stock. What's his name? Old Mate Reef Builders throws the show. Jake Adams. He throws the show over here down in Sydney. So I thought I was being a genius and waiting till the end because I'd been the previous year, and I know a lot of vendors don't want to take their corals home. Some vendors are local, and I know it seems cheeky, but everyone kind of knows that that's the case at the end of shows. People that don't want to take their corals home will sell it for at least half the price that they were selling it for the rest of the weekend. So I'm being really smart and holding out to the end of the weekend. Ended up spending $3,500 anyway.
That's why you have 3 tanks in the background. You're like, I need more tanks to hold on my loot.
You should have seen it. I got home and I had only that one quarantine system that was already 3/4 full, and this 2 eskies full, like chockers full, the polystyrene ones of corals. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, and I'd just driven 12 hours. I'm like, what do I do? How did I get myself in this situation?
Awesome. What did you do?
I stayed up and called in sick the next day for work.
Wise strategy.
That's awesome.
Okay. So speaking of that, I'm sure you found them homes. People ask me all the time, can you put corals in a new tank? How long should you wait? I, like 5 years ago probably, I bought a good deal. Some guy shutting down a bunch of these really big acro colonies. I was like, oh, sweet, that's great. I want them. But they were like too big to fit my 30-gallon tank. So they literally lived for a month in a 5-gallon bucket with a heater and a power head. And I did a water change every like 4 or 5 days just for the elements. So if corals can live in a bucket with a heater and a power head, you can probably get them to tank pretty early. So whenever people are like, oh, you can't order corals too early, I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. So
hey, I'm in Australia. You don't even need the heater. Just throw the bucket outside, mate.
you just got to straw out the window and just blow into it once in a while.
Yeah, it's we had a fairly good winter, and it was really cool the whole winter. And summer's just starting to hit. We're randomly getting days of 30 degrees during the day, and that's just the start of summer kind of thing. So I was like, oh, I feel it coming. Get the aircon out.
I'm jealous. It's starting to get cold to here.
I know he says 30. It's 41 here. What's he talking about? But I guess he's talking Celsius.
Yeah.
You guys are upside down there.
You're just the wrong way up. I think that's the case.
Hey, so let me ask you this: how long have you been rookie reefer?
My whole life.
About how long? How long is that?
I've been
a rookie
my whole life anyway. Look, I've had the channel for possibly 2.5 years now.
Okay,
maybe.
So next year you change your name from rookie to intermediate reefer?
No, it stays rookie. That's just a disclaimer in case I stuff up.
Nice.
Wise.
That works.
I saw Moki in here, inappropriate reefer. That's his disclaimer for life.
I know, and he continues to be inappropriate. I see his stuff on Instagram. I have to go, no, you cannot do that.
Yes.
Can't, or shouldn't?
Yeah, it's up to him to decide if he wants to listen or not. Usually he's very nice, but I'm sure he's like, oh, Mark's telling me what to do again.
I think he knows in his journey through reefing that he could have, if he wanted to, learn a lot more. Not that he hasn't learned a whole heck of a lot, but it's kind of you determine how much time and how much effort you're going to put into the hobby when you start, and that varies during summer and winter and all these things, doesn't it?
Oh, question. So at least, North America, I find the hobby is fairly seasonal. Like it definitely slows down in the summer. It's nice out, people outside doing stuff. Wintertime, everyone's indoors, the hobby picks back up again. Is it the same way down in Australia, or is it fairly consistent all year round?
Consistent for what? Sorry, I was typing. I'm a guy. I can't do 2 things at once.
What a guy. Okay. So in North America, I find the hobby semi-seasonal, right? Like a lot more people are into it in the winter, the summertime, people outside doing stuff, playing in the sun, not ignoring their tanks. How's it down there? Because you're like nice all year round.
We don't. Where I am, I'm on the Gold Coast, so it's literally halfway down the east coast of Australia. So where I am, we're pretty warm. So you can kind of do the hobby the whole year round. I do find I've talked to a lot of local stores, and they do seem to get a little bit quieter during summer. Obviously, people doing a little bit more, but the hobby in general isn't that large over here. You guys have so many more people in America and Canada than we do into the hobby. It's only just kind of in the last few years taken off slightly. There's a lot of fresh water people, but the hobby's looked down on a lot over here. So it's not unless you understand, because people are naive. They don't understand. They see us taking things from the ocean and they don't understand.
But you guys have
you live near the Great Barrier Reef, right?
I have corals about half an hour. No, not even. I can drive 15 minutes to the beach and get corals. I'm about 3.5 hours away from Great Barrier Reef, the start of it.
Nice. Now,
Awesome.
do you go out there? Do you dive it very often? Have you?
I have, yeah, I dove 2 years ago now, I think. I'm planning a trip up there early next year with the missus, so we'll go on another dive, go out. It's such an amazing place, like the Great Barrier Reef. Anyone that's Look, it's one of them things. This is kind of the other day I went out with one of my mates on his boat. He goes out spearfishing a lot. Now he goes out into big open water and he goes shoots these massive fish with sharks everywhere. And he's like, "Yeah, come down, come shoot some fish." And I'm like, "Hell no, yeah, get me in that water." And he's like, "What do you mean? You go diving on the reefs?" I'm like, "Yeah, because there's corals to look there. Why do you think I don't like fish? I don't like fish. I like corals." You get distracted by these corals. Look, you don't. It's a hard thing to explain, but even my missus was really, really scared before the first time she went. She didn't really have an interest in this. She buys a few corals here and there for me, but she likes to look at it, but she doesn't have an interest, and she was scared. Now she got out there, and I couldn't get her back in. Like I had a, you couldn't get me back in last time I went out, but yeah, so looking forward to it. Probably in March when it starts to cool down. Next year I'll head up there for another
I would
jaunt.
think you would go every single year, not every single month, but every single year. You
It-
have the ability to do what we can't. I mean, literally, it's like you said, it's 3.5 hours away. Are you kidding me? If I want to go to SeaWorld, I have to drive 5.5 hours.
And you have the Great Barrier Reef, and you have like the land of the micromusa slash acans and gold torches
yeah,
that
so
everybody wants. You're just
you
like, yep, thank you.
you got to understand how expansive the Great Barrier Reef is, Mark. Like I say, it's 3.5 hours. That's to the most easterly point. Now
Right.
you can drive the Great Barrier Reef for roughly 22 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I
Literally.
don't have any sense of scale on that one. I don't know.
It may not be quite that
Wow.
much, but it's close to 20 hours that it would be driving the whole entire reef.
Yeah.
So it's that expansive that I don't just want to go to the closest part to me, because
Right. Yeah.
it's kind of, that's where you find all your softies, your acans, you find some SPS and all that, but it's when you go up more north that you find
Mhm.
your expansive colonies of acros. That's
Yeah.
what I've seemed to find anyway.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would want a liveaboard then if it's that large, where I could go down and dive in different spots and check out different parts of the Great Barrier Reef, rather than, like you said, being on one edge of it. Because obviously
Mhm.
you can't swim it in a day if it's that long. So if you could drop into different areas each day, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, it's one of them things too. Once you dive, you would know, Devon. It kind of gives you a bit more of an understanding of um, how these corals live in the wild. You've got to understand corals are separated by centimeters in our tanks. Now, you can get one coral at the bottom, 20 meters down, and you've got corals at the surface. So there's a massive range of the variants of where corals can live, and the more we understand that, the more it makes it a bit easier to keep corals, because we're trying to keep all these corals that are from these vastly different areas. You've got areas inland which have all these muddy wash from all the storms and all that. Then you've got perfect reefs that are 10 kilometers out. They're not going to be the same conditions. So keeping acans, for instance, which come from the murkier waters, and Montipora, all that kind of stuff, and SPS in the same system, that's why it can be so difficult. Ooh, that's my opinion anyway.
Mhm.
Mhm. Well, the other thing is too, not even just the different climates in one region, different regions, right? We mix that in. Plus, you have corals from Indo, Australia, all different Red Sea, like Bali, like all over the world. You're taking corals and trying to put them all into one system. And
You guys do. We're specifically Australian. There is no corals in Australia, no inverts, no anything that came from. Well, look, there's no corals in Australia that came from Indonesia. So, but there isn't coral. You can't get corals from Indonesia. You can't get corals from anywhere apart from Australia. It's just lucky that we have a vast array of corals accessible.
Yeah.
As you're saying, Mark, you walked into the store, you see some nice LPS. Welcome to my world. Every single time I go into the
Yeah.
store, there will be 20 big, huge colonies of acans varying from $20 to $120. So
Yeah.
it's one of them things that it's hard to quarantine, because you start a quarantine cycle and then you find more corals the next week and you're like, oh, just restart. Yeah.
Yeah, restart the clock.
Yeah.
So if you're saying 20 to $100 for a big colony of acans, they're pretty cheap there then.
Yeah, sorry. I did I turned my mic down earlier when I wasn't talking. I forgot to turn it back up. Welsh just pointed it out. Yeah, there's all sorts. Like I literally got a colony of Iron Man acans the other day for $55. And it's about yay
awesome.
big.
Oh, here that would be
See-
like, here's your little frag.
When I go to events, I can get acans where it's like maybe 4 polyps and it's like $20 if you're lucky. You know, they'll have some $20 ones, and they have some more expensive ones. I'm like, I'll take those 520s, you know, because I want to fill up my tank. But when I was at the store yesterday, he had some that were probably about that wide across. You know, I don't know. It was about half of what you described, maybe even a third. And I think he said 60 or 70 a piece, you know, per rock. But at least he's not like other stores where they charge you by the polyp. And they see, oh, there's 76 heads times $17. That's $1,847.
That's crazy. That should only count if there's like 1 or 2. When you get a big colony, it should get cheaper for like.
Look, it goes both ways, Mark. That's what you got to understand. There's certain corals over here that we pay 5x on what you would. Rose bubble tip anemones, kind of $600.
Really?
You got Colorado sunset anemones are about $2.5, $3 over here.
These didn't cost that much.
Yeah, precisely. There's a lot of fish that we do pay extensively more. Yeah. And you guys pay a lot less, not a lot less, but you got to keep in mind a lot of this equipment is sent straight over from America. The decent lights, all this kind of stuff. So we pay an excess with all them premium, should I say?
Right.
Okay, so the one crazy expensive coal I always see right now is gold torches. How much are they down in Australia?
Oh yeah.
You
Good
don't
question.
want to know.
Are they crazy?
Yeah, we
Or
do.
are they like free? But they're like, you get a gold torch and you get a gold torch.
Well, I'm actually a bit upset at my local fish store because he used to have a vast amount of them, and they used to be $29 a head. Now they are. Look, they do vary a bit. A lot of stores are charging around 100 a head. My local store, which no, I'm not telling you what my local store is, has them for 49. But that's kind of like mates only kind of thing. I think to the public, they're about 79.
So I bought one single head last year. I think it was like 150 or 60, something crazy. And now they're like up to like 2 something. I'm like, what? Yeah. Ridiculous.
I had a 6 or 7 head colony, and I had it way too close to my hammer. Found out that the hammer was stronger than it. Believe it or not, normally torches, in my experience, are stronger. So it ended up getting brown jelly, and then I did a lot to try to save it. I think I did too much to try to save it, and it ended up just perishing. That was a sad one.
So okay, that does suck. But question on brown jelly: is there anything you can do to save a coral that has brown jelly or starting to go downhill?
Funny you should say that, because I was just recently looking into something, because obviously you guys would know what Zolpox is. Now, the medication that everyone seems to commonly use is the API Furin 2. Now, that isn't really available in Australia. It's more so kind of an order in from the States thing, and it's not something I want to be waiting for, because I do have a blonde, blue-eyed beach. Do I beat that out? Well, that's what they're called. I'm just naming the coral. A colony of zoas that one of the heads just went. So I scalpeled down and separated it from the colony. The other one seemed okay, but I just wanted to dip it preemptively. So this is one thing that I read up on. Now, it's Ceflex. Now, Ceflex is a general antibiotic. It's a pretty common one. A lot of vets will use it. A lot of it's a very common. It covers a lot of things, but it's not as strong as some of the other antibiotics. Now, this guy apparently can be used for Zolpox, and the person who reported this said that he got better results than with Furin 2. So this is something I'm going to try, and apparently this could almost, or some form of antibiotic could be a much better way of going about brown jelly rather than just dipping in iodine, because I've tried dipping into iodine. I've done it once a day. I've done it several times a day. I've done it once a week. I have never actually stopped a colony from brown gelling once it had actually taken hold. I've always taken it as a challenge at times.
Let me know if that works. I'd be super curious to know. Because I've had that one.
Look,
At least I've had
I
people
ain't trying to get brown jelly, so I'm not going to get it for you. But if
Come
I do ever
on.
encounter it, that is
science.
something that I can try. I'm definitely going to be trying it on the Zoa colonies and see how they turn out. I'll let you know. I'll give you an update with that one.
Okay.
Hey, can I ask a question, you two? So I've heard of zoopox forever. I've never dealt with it. If I did, I didn't know what it was called. I'm sure some people watching this have never heard of it. Why don't you just tell us what it is or what to look for so we can more easily identify it?
Look, it's one of them things. I'm not 1000% sure it is zoopox, because zoopox normally will show themselves in a kind of like pimple on the stem of your zoas. Your zoas will be closed up a lot more than normal. And obviously with zoas, it's hard to tell because they can't, if you have a sand bed, they can take sand from it and get it stuck to the stem. So that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for an actual kind of pussy looking bit on the stem. Now that's not specifically what I got, but it's one of them things where I feel like it covers a vast array of things. So it kind of just progressed itself in not opening. The stem kind of started to look a bit darker. And then it literally almost looks like the coral is rotting from the inside. The zoa is closed and looks like it's rotting from the inside. So
thank you. Listen, I appreciate that. The one thing I encountered with my zoas and with pallies as well, which is just a larger zoa, was occasionally a polyp would close and then something would happen around near the top, like a string happened around it. And it made the thing look circumcised. Okay. It just was hilarious. And I took pictures and I joked about the penis coral. And, I would finally say, okay, someone's got to do something. This coral's not going to make it. And so I went in with a very gentle toothbrush and tried to remove that little circle or cut off whatever that string was that was choking the head of the zooanthid basically. And it reopened and was happy again. I don't even know what that's called, but I came across that like 2 or 3 times. Have either of you ever seen anything remotely close to that?
Not that I've had it personally, but I've seen those little zoa spiders that can actually that's scary. Talk about those things. Never had to deal with them personally, but they're literally spiders that will like eat the zoa and like live inside of it and like lay eggs and they basically devour your zoas. Those would be creepy.
I've seen band videos. They're freaky. I wouldn't ever want to deal with them. That's something I haven't come across personally. But
look, there's a dog on the screen. A dog just appeared between scenes.
No, she's on the ground. She's always chilling by me if I'm home. She's a good
beautiful.
Thank you. That's my white shepherd. Her name's Bella.
Bella, nice. Very nice. I find a lot of people that have fish tanks have pets actually, like other pets, like furry pets.
I find a lot of people that have fish tanks used to have a very intrusive hobby. So something that used to take up a lot of time and a lot of your effort. I used to be personally into cars, so imports. I used to always be building, painting, doing something or other with them. And I find that's the case with a lot of people. I've met a lot of people that used to own modified cars and all that kind of stuff. So it's one of them obsessive
hobbies.
I think we're obsessive people, but to actually be in it and to do all this stuff, you can look at it from the outside and be, well, what are these crazy people doing? Yeah, your tank looks pretty, but how much effort do you put in? How much money do you spend on this thing? You're nuts. But
it's true. We're just trading one obsession for another. But yeah, I used to be totally into cars in my younger days too, so I feel you.
What was that question you asked previously, Mark? Something about the zoas. You said, had anyone seen
that weird effect that happened with with the string around the stalk?
Yeah, my only comment on that, I just got lost before, is that can happen a lot with algae. You get green hair algae, it can actually wrap around the polyp itself, and also invasive sponges. So you got your nice white sponge. In your tank, you've got a 4-foot tank. This coral's down 2 foot away. You're not taking it out. See, that's what it's kind of, there's many disadvantages to having like a frag tank, but there's many advantages. You can check your corals a lot more frequently and easily. So sponges can actually literally grow in between all the polyps, and they'll just suffocate the polyps. I had a scrambled eggs colony that almost happened to. I picked up on it within a week, and that was lucky because they started opening again.
Speaking of that, I have a bunch of orange Bam Bam, similar thing, where they're that white sponge, and every once in a while it pokes up through the polyps. Like, it's not bad, but you can see it is starting to kind of grow over it. So every once in a while, I just yank it out again because it's easy to remove, but it is
I
slightly
came across a
invasive.
weird sponge thing in my tank yesterday or day before
Is
yesterday.
that what it was?
Did you see it on I put it on Facebook. It was these weird circles, and they were really pretty. And I'm looking at my tank under blue light. And I'm like, what are these circles? What is in my tank? I've never seen this area. And it was on the rock face. It wasn't like where an acro was or something logical. And so, I took a couple of iPhone pictures and I'm zooming it in on the screen. I'm trying to understand what it is. And I was like, is this a sponge? Does a sponge have round circles that glow? This is amazing. So yesterday I broke out the Nikon and I got out a macro lens and I really zoomed in. And it ends up, they were just hydroids, but these hydroids have a green circle. And since they're doing no harm and they took forever to happen, I'm going to enjoy them for what they are and not be scared of them. But I did want to ask you both, since we're talking about eye candy and scary things, if there was a pest you want to avoid at all costs, what pest would that be?
Go for it, Tricky.
Devin, you cover that one. I'll have a good think because I've ran across a few.
Have you? What have I encountered? Let's start with that. Zoidiid nudibranchs. Those lovely little guys. They're not too bad to get rid of. Hopefully you don't have to deal with the eggs, but
That's not scary.
yeah, you can pull those out or you can suck them out the water change hose. The next pain in the butt one was Montipora eating nudibranchs. Those are a bugger. So to get rid of those guys, they hide in the daytime and they come out at night. So what I did every morning, I use a flashlight. I go to the tank and I use a little tiny water change hose and suck out all the ones that were on my Monty. So I did that for about a week straight until I got rid of all the adults. But the thing is, there could still be babies or eggs and stuff in there. So I added a small yellow chorus wrasse, and eventually I got rid of them all. So that was all good. So between the yellow chorus wrasse and me manually sucking them out, within a couple of weeks they were gone. So that wasn't too bad. I bought coral with red bugs. I never put it in my tank because I was too scared. But that'd be one. No, I had it in a little.
You're scared of red bugs?
They were in a quarantine tank, and I didn't want to add them to my tank. By quarantine tank, I mean I went and bought a little plastic dinky critter jug from like PetSmart and threw in a heater and a little power head. But yeah, anyways, they didn't fare well. So I was just like, all right, they're free. I'll take them and I'll see if I can deal with them. I didn't have Interceptor or any of that type of medication at the time. I was a pretty new reefer at the time, so I just never put them in the tank. So those are the only more annoyance ones I've dealt with. Flatworms, like the non-harmful kinds, like the rusty planaria type of deals. Those ones use flatworm X or whatever, killed those. But yeah, there's been nothing super duper scary.
Yeah,
I think like the fireworms, those guys that can like sting you, would be suck to deal with. But yeah, I don't know.
All right.
Nothing super duper scary. No nightmare stuff like the big tremor looking creatures, whatever those guys are.
The Bobbitt Worm.
Yeah, they're creepy.
Funny you should say that.
Do you have one? You're like, pull out this little container. This is my pet.
No,
The
look,
Bobbitt Worm.
to tell you the honest truth, the scariest looking worms I've encountered, I haven't been able to identify. They are weird looking. Kind of, there's probably 2 or 3 that look really weird. They're not bristle worms, they're not Bobbitt worms, they're kind of in between, but they have little, you see the things move. They just creep me out when they move across the table. They like throw this thing and it like pulls, and yeah, it's all sorts of weird. But personally, I think probably scariest from an outsider's point of view would be Montipora eating nudies. I've had them before. They actually weren't that hard to deal with. So I would say the Bobbitt worm that I found one time, little baby Bobbitt worm. That was pretty freaky because it was only about yay big, but you could see all its pincers and all this kind of stuff. And
have you seen the movie?
Too much.
Do you remember the movie Tremors from like the early 90s?
Sure do.
Yeah, those big sand creatures that are basically like Bobbitt worms, desert Bobbitt worms.
How old do you think I am?
Hey man, anything's on Netflix these days.
Yeah, that's
no excuses.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. You should watch Tremors one day and then have lovely sweet dreams about your Bobbitt worms.
For me, I guess out of all the pests I've encountered, and I've encountered quite a few, I think Cranium Flatworms were the
Hmm.
biggest challenge,
Hmm.
but I wasn't scared of them while everyone else on the planet was freaking out. They were ripping their tanks apart. They were chiseling off every bit of SPS with a hammer and screwdriver, so there was no tissue left in the tank. They would take the corals and dip them at least weekly, if not more often. And they kept doing this over and over. And then they'd say, I lost 80 to 90% of my SPS because, well, duh, you just handled the hell out of them, put them through chemicals, change their flow, change their lighting, change their neighbors because they're all in this quarantine tank that's not nearly as nice as your reef tank, all because you're worried of some acroid flatworms. And for me, I didn't overreact like that. I felt that was a huge overreaction to rip your tank apart because you want to remove a pest. And I'm a huge proponent of live rock. By the way, I wanted to ask our Australian counterpart, do you get to use live rock down there, or do you guys use stuff that's dry rock like our Marco rock we have here?
It's a hard one because it's just kind of recently, as I said, a lot of the products you guys have available to you, they take a while to bleed over here. So obviously, if you have a new release of something, say Marco Rock or whatever, when it first came out, it would have been a lot more abundant over there.
Sure.
There would have been small shipments come in, but it's only become, I have found in my local stores anyway, I can't speak for Australia, but I've found only kind of in the last 2 years that it's become a more prominent thing to be dealing with dry rock. I suppose so many people have had issues with live rock. It's still fairly easy to source over here. There is some stores that carry it, but more and more, I think stores are finding that it's not worthwhile carrying. They have to have a huge tank just for this live rock, which they could probably make the same profit off as they could with dry rock. And it's kind of one of them things. If you don't have any other options, you just go with what you can. So
Right. I was just curious because, see, I've never been scared of live rock. I think live rock is the best thing we could ever use. And I'm a
Bonus,
huge
check
proponent or recommender of it. And, you know, Devin's setting up his new tank and he's aquascaping his bone dry rock. He's like, oh, it's
Yeah,
not
he
quite
is.
glued. Oh, my God. Anyway, good luck with that tank. But I love live rock. And anything that crawls in on that thing, awesome. It's life. It's exciting. And I can't wait to see what comes out of it.
is it because you don't like the difficultness of not having live rock? Because it obviously is a lot easier to set up a tank with, like, is it because you're trying to not rush into it, or is it specifically because you would like to? It's a mystery. You'd see what you get. See, I would go with live rock.
It's a lot of that.
If you could get a little sheet of paper and just tick the critters you wanted, and the ones you didn't, just put a cross next to, yeah, exactly. That would be beautiful. But
Peacock mantis, sure, I'll throw one of those in. Go through the list.
No, I love live rock. I love the benefits of live rock. The fact that it's harder to get just kind of makes me sad. And I understand. I get it. We're trying to protect the planet. Don't take from the reef. But I just discovered recently there's a company in Florida that still sells live rock. They'll ship it to you in water overnight on an airplane, so it won't even cycle. And I was so excited because it's not like they're taking from a reef. They're actually taking rock, whatever they're doing. They're putting the ocean and they're getting it covered in algae and getting it covered in sponges and tunicates and worms and bugs and all the cool things. And the fact that I could actually get some in the future if I needed some is such great news to me, because I've watched so many people set up tanks with dry rock and it goes through the ugly phases. They deal with some horrendous, it's just harder. And I just love live rock because you can just set it up and you can start putting your livestock and, you know, I mean, don't go nuts, but
Insta-tank, really, right? It is.
I really do like live rock over dry rock if anytime I can set it up.
All right. So for me, I like the idea of it. However, it would cost me a fortune to get it. If you're on the East Coast, Florida area, I mean, you got a ton of options. I'm on the West Coast. It's colder. I'm in Canada. It would cost me a fortune to get live rock. I'm way too cheap. Dry rock it is. I do think now that there's so many bottle bacteria products, I mean, it's not going to get you the same. You're not going to have that diversity. You're not going to have all that life as you would on live rock. But I mean, I think it helps you get there quicker.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, no, like my new tank, I'm doing 100% dry, and I'm partially know it's going to be a partially painful experience because I don't have like my age established wonderful rock I could just throw in my tank and be good to go from day one. So I'm making it more of a challenge for myself, but I'm also using it as a bit of a way to like weed out some of the overbearing taking over corals I don't want, and I can be more picky with what I put into the new tank.
Yeah.
Now, this could be a whole other stream, but how do you think bottled bacteria products relate to live rock?
The different ones that are on the market, I only know what I read, unless I have personal experience with it. Like, for example, this isn't the, I'm answering your question, but give me a second.
Mhm.
If you buy a bag of live sand, I remember people, every time you said, hey, I bought some live sand, people would attack you on the forums. And they'd say, that is such a ripoff. That's a scam. See, that's the stuff. Exactly. They're a rag alive. I love that stuff. And they said it's a scam and there's no way there's anything alive. It's been sealed. It's been in a warehouse. It's been in a truck. It's been, in the sun. It's 1,000 degrees. But you add water and life emerges from it. So literally there is stuff in there that's dormant. So having some kind of bacteria you can add to the tank to add some life to dry rock, for example, or even to live rock, I don't see that as a negative. I think it's good, and we want to avoid the mono. I forget the term, monoculture. We want to have multiple bacterias in there, and
Mhm.
if you can add Prodibio, or if you can add Dr. Tim's, or you can add Fritz Zyme, or these different products that exist, and I'm sure you've got 10 more in your head. Those I feel like they do benefit, but I don't think they speed up the process. They help, but they're
Mhm.
not going to move you forward 6 months really quick. The
Mm,
rock's still not ready. It's not stable enough. It doesn't have. It needs to be
that's fair.
impregnated with life. It takes
Yeah.
time.
Mhm. It does. It does. It's true. And I find it is, at least a good 3 or 4 months before a tank settles, before things kind of get in their groove,
Mhm.
before, like that's at least 3 or 4 months.
Look, the only reason why I don't personally run live rock is because
Wait, rookie.
yeah.
Technically, it's all live now. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Uh, but the only reason, or one of the reasons why I don't run live rock is because the kind of scaremongering when you first get into the hobby that so many people do with live rock. Now, I don't believe now being in the hobby for a lot longer that is right. People shouldn't scare people. You should just do research and find out yourself. It's the same as everything. Research can save you thousands of dollars. Just you got to figure out what you're
Yeah.
comfortable with. Obviously, I have access to Easy Live Rock. The one reason why I don't do it personally is because I want to sell corals out of my systems. That was the whole point of getting into this. I wanted to help some hobbyists out with smaller colonies and stuff. So I want to know what's in my tanks. So that's one of the only reasons why I go bare bottom. That's one of the only reasons why I don't have live rock in my tank. So you kind of have to go towards you're in certain circumstances, aren't you? You have to work with what you got.
So you're saying that if the corals or if the rock had some pests, then you're worried that the corals would have pests, and then if you try to sell corals, you're selling pests, and that's your concern. You're trying to avoid that.
The more and more I frag corals, the more I realize you're never going to keep everything out. These systems
Right.
that everything gets quarantined for, stuff snakes through 100% of the time. But for me to realize that how many critters can hide inside, I was only cutting up a couple of colonies of zoas the other night, and they were spread over pieces of dead acro. Now, dead acro, you would think fully solid, there'd be nothing inside it. Now, every single time that I cut that acro, there was a hole with another worm. So in 2 little pieces of acro, probably about yay big, I would have found 15 worms at least, and all different sorts of weird ones. So my reasoning behind it is live rock being that there is so many pores, there's so many places to hide. You just don't know what's in there. There would be some stuff. There would be probably 1,000 worms in each piece of rock when you actually, which could be a good thing for some people, but that's not a risk I'm willing to take with other people's systems. So
That's fair. Fair point. Fair.
It's interesting.
It is. It is. It 100% does slow down you getting to that happy settled age place though. Okay,
Yeah.
completely off topic, but you also said you went bare bottom in all your tanks. What was your reasoning for that?
easier to move things around, easier to gain access to corals. It's easier to just plop something on the ground and not, personally for me, not have to worry about all detritus and stuff getting through a sand bed. You have generally I have high flow in most of my systems, so you'll get one kind of pocket of dead flow. I'll have that where corals aren't, so I can siphon that bit out regularly. So it just makes it easier for maintenance. It's kind of like most of the bigger places will, like the supply corals will run bare bottom tanks. It is purely just a maintenance thing.
Okay, no, that's fair. Just curious. I've always thought about it, but then I just love the look of the white sand bed so much that I haven't went back.
I think he's just cheap. He doesn't want to buy sand.
That's true.
Yeah, no, I can get cheap sand, so don't worry about that. I can get cheap everything reef related around here. I live near the Great Barrier Reef.
Go to the beach with your shovel and
exactly. No, you'd go out a bit. I could dive down 20 meters and take some of the good stuff off the reefs. Yeah, it's more so. I look at people's reefs that are full mature and they have all rocks everywhere. They have a sand bed and whatnot. It looks like a reef. And I do get jealous of that. But then I think to myself, if I put all my corals on rocks and whatnot, my tank would look pretty damn good too. So
yeah. Well, the prettier the corals, the more we'll try to ignore the lack of sand. I like the benefit of sand. Just the look, it feels natural to me. And there's a reflective quality of the lights bouncing off the sand and hitting the underside of the corals.
Yeah, no, I understand that 100%. And I do the opposite. I tint the bottom of my tank so it doesn't. That's probably the stupidest thing I could be doing.
You're absorbing the light.
Yeah, but it looks great, all right?
Technically, you should put like white vinyl or something on the bottom, reflect light back up, and then you get more light on the bottom side
mirror,
of it.
Just put actual mirror, and the
I wonder what that would be like. It might be a nightmare.
Yeah, I know a lot of aquaculture places will use white racks and white on the bottom on purpose just to get that extra light reflection and keep the bottoms of the coral healthier.
Yeah.
Pro tips.
Pro tips.
Yep. Let's read in the comments. Great discussion. Just the only problem with bare bottom is limiting for fish and livestock, especially for like grasses. Sand does look great and looks like a real reef. Yeah, that's always my big thing is I like sand.
What happened to our buddy's feed? We have no
he's hiding. Anymore. He's hiding.
You killed my camera, Dev. Like
I killed it.
Please insert 25 cents for 5 more minutes.
Yeah, pretty much. I gotta
it's like the telescopes you look through. Batteries. What are you using for a camera? Like a camera? You need a dummy battery, man.
Yeah, it's my G85. Yeah, I know, but I don't even have spare power in this room anyway. So I've got all this computer hooked up, so I don't have one single power point at the moment.
Wow.
Completely side thing, but yeah, I bought a dummy battery for the camera that I use for live streaming, and then I realized that my dummy battery I can never use for my normal camera, so then I bought a second one. They're cheap. They work well.
Nice.
Then you can use a big USB battery pack in less ages.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do the two of you do about knowledge? I was curious. What do you read or subscribe to that
I watch all of your videos.
Well, okay, besides watching all my channels. No, seriously, are you a Coral subscriber? Do you break it open? Do you have books? Do you read books? Are you reading stuff online?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Mark, over the sucking. Sorry.
That sound happens from Canada all the time.
No, look, there's a plethora of good information out there, 100%. But it's kind of one of them things you've got to learn, and it's hard as a new hobbyist. It's hard to learn where to take information from because 100% you can only take bits and bits and bits of pieces from everything pretty much that you read. Don't believe everything 100% until you've tried it yourself. That's my experience.
I agree.
Now, okay, so reading stuff. You did mention Coral Magazine. Yes, I do have the digital subscription to that. I do read lots of random stuff. I do have a bunch of like scientific-y coral books. I go in spurts when I read those or not. I do a lot of online reading. I mean, obviously I watch other people's videos. I do my own. And a big thing is I like to experiment a lot. Not the best plan for being a reefer, but a great plan for YouTube. Like, I've went, refugiums, like, oh, let's build a cheetah reactor. Let's try a turf scrubber. Like, do I need to do all this stuff? No, I just do it because if I want to be able to talk educated about something, then I need to try it for myself. I need that first-hand experience. So
no,
I find I experiment a lot, and that's bred or come out of because I do know these videos and YouTubes, and I just feel I need to do it if I'm going to be able to advise people on it, right? So.
Yeah.
Amen to that. I cannot stand watching someone who doesn't even know what they're talking about talk on a topic. It's it's one of the things I find most aggravating. It's why I don't put out more videos. Like, there's plenty of things I know, but
Mhm.
I'm not ready to put a video on it because I'm not 100% certain to tell someone this is what you do, this is how you do it. Like that's how I've had success, but it may not be for different people. So you have to really be cautious when approaching it from that kind of aspect, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I learned a lot of what I learned at MACNA way back in the 2002, 2003, 2004. I went to all the talks. Now I can barely make a talk. Too busy. But back then I went to all the talks and I'd learned so much and I'd walk out of there so, I don't even know what to say, inspired or just infused with knowledge. And I felt like I finally had answers because experts taught me stuff in 45 minutes to an hour. And I was like, oh my God, now I know about deep sand beds. And oh my God, now I know about lighting. Oh my God, now I know about, quarantine tanks or whatever. And I spent way too much time living on forums. I was on there around the clock and I was reading everything that was being posted. I was reading people's mistakes. I was reading people's DIY solutions. I was reading links to articles in reefkeeping.com. And, now we have Coral Magazine, for example, that's been out for 10 years or more. And I've been a subscriber for a very long time. And it's hard for me. I want to open it up, but it sits there and I'm so busy that I'm like, oh my God, I'm an issue behind, or I have books that I've got autographed by the author that still haven't been read. And I'm thinking, man, I should read that book. God knows what I'd have to say next week on the live stream.
It's wise.
Yeah.
In my early days, I was on the forums a lot. I don't go on as much as I used to, but when I was new, I did tons and tons and tons of reading. Digital. The one thing that drives me nuts, I have the Coral digital subscription, but it doesn't work if you don't have data. So I can't read it on an airplane. It drives me nuts.
Oh, yeah.
I told
See,
them
it'd be
that at
nice if you could
MACNA,
save the
fix that.
PDF and then watch it locally or read it locally on your device. Yeah, no, I agree. That makes sense.
See, personally, I never did forums. I can't stand Facebook. There's just too many heroes.
Well, Facebook isn't a forum. Facebook's a group and it's a disaster.
There's too many
But
chiefs, not enough
forums, you have build threads and we could document. Like I ran a build thread on Reef Central back from 2004 to 2010. And in those 6 years, my thread had a humongous following and it went on. The thread was so big that after 50 pages, there would be part 2, and then part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6. It was ridiculous how long my thread was, but it documented the entire experience of my 280-gallon reef, and people could go through it and read all my updates of what I'd done. They could read comments if they wanted, or they could skip past all the banter and the chatter and get back to the meaty parts of the thing. But that was really how we educated each other, was by documentation. And I feel like we don't document nearly as much as we used to. We share a video or we do a blog, but I don't think we're like following the experience of a tank long term to really understand and say, I remember it 2 years ago when it had half the coral or something like that.
Yeah. I try and do that through YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm going. I'm on my both new tanks. I'm going to try and be very consistent every single
That'd be
day
great.
on them. So hopefully.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Do it.
They're both like in the works, so it's happening. It's going down.
That'd be nice to see, actually, because I think everyone gets you kind of get preoccupied and you kind of let things slip by. You let updates slip by. So to actually see a tank kind of come from where it's come, but as you were saying, Mark, I find forums used to be a good source, not so much anymore. I don't know whether that's just because too many people talking, but I feel like genuinely right now, if I tried to start the hobby and I went through Facebook, I feel like I'd be put off.
Yeah.
Like genuinely. So how do we get people that are just going through that means to come on YouTube and to see that it's a great family here? There's a lot of people that aren't judging. We're like, when we can give advice, we're willing to give it and to try and help people out. I've sat there for hours on video chats with people that I've never met, trying to give them advice. Like and it's at the end of the day, no one owes me anything. I do it because I enjoy it. So it's how do we get people to realize that instead of, because Facebook is such a bigger thing, there's so much bigger thing than YouTube, and yet YouTube's where all the goodness is at, with actual kind of people, genuine people. If you're willing to come on a video and show, instead of just putting a comment down, do this, then you're obviously going to be looked up to a little bit more because you can put a face to that person.
And how many of us take the time to make a video to help other people? Just like when we don't know how to do something, we Google what's out there that shows us how to do it. I remember Devin, he just did this amazing video about the Alcatronic. And I was watching it going, holy crap, I could never do this video. There's no chance I get this video. He knows everything, like he invented the damn thing. And so I wrote him, I was like, Devin, how on earth did you know so much about this? And you wrote, do you remember what you told me?
I just figured it out. I just played with it.
No.
I don't know.
Lie to your audience.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you? I don't know.
You said I lived on the forums and read everything on the Alcatronic. I knew everything before the box ever showed up.
Yeah, that's true. I pre-do my research to learn as much as I can, and then I'll play with it. Like, for instance, I haven't done a video on this. I have had this Kimura I've been playing with for a while, but like, I like to use stuff for a while. I like to get a good feel for it. I like to know and understand it because I don't want to make a video or show off, or if I recognize something that sucks. Like, and you don't know that until you use it and you play with it and you love it or you hate it, right? So you need that hands-on.
So no, I was really blown away with how well that video was done. I mean, you just knew every nuance of the darn thing. I was like, how does he know so much? This thing's new to the market. I'm blown away, and I was really impressed by that. And I feel like people go to YouTube looking for answers. And like both of you have said, there's bad information out there. I mean, there's bad information on web pages,
everywhere,
on groups, on forums, on YouTube. I mean, it just is. But there's good information, and the audience has to choose who they want to believe. And hopefully what they're being taught applies to their tank and will work for them as well.
Okay, this is slightly off tangent. So I know the original stream was more around corals, and I know we're also talking about different things. Okay, so Gonioporas. I love my little Goni garden right now. And I posted a little video on Instagram and I shared it online. I got tons of Facebook shares, whatever. And a lot of people were like, there's so much flow for them. I thought they were low flow. I'm like, no, they get lots. And like me, I'm like, it's just whatever, like lighter, like medium flow. And everyone's like, they're getting blasted. And they're all happy and extended. But it's just interesting to see like the conceptions of stuff, right? Like, Gonis can only be in...
They can visually see the thing's perfect, and yet they go, no, it's too much flow. Like, how do you...
Yeah, and I know, and I'm like, no, I thought they're only low flow. I'm like, no, they're pretty happy. They're like blowing around, fully extended, happy. So curious, do you guys have Gonioporas, and what kind of flow do you guys have them in, if you have them?
No, I don't have any. I tried one a while back. It didn't survive. It just was a little frag, and I guess I ignored it or didn't get enough food, and it just withered away, and I failed.
No, that sucks. Yep.
The old Gunny curse, eh? No, I had some. I fragged up a couple of colonies. When I started, they were kind of one of the corals that I thought, oh, that looks pretty. But I kind of stayed away from after that, to tell you the honest truth. The only ones I really like are about $100 a frag now, about this big. So I stay away from that kind of stuff. As I said, there's a lot cheaper corals in America and Canada.
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 Good old Canada.
I love that you said that.
Yes. But specifically, this is why, just to let you know, guys, everyone watching out here, this is why Devin doesn't have guests on, because me and Mark, we're over here dribbling all sorts of stuff. We've talked about everything but scary corals. Sorry about the title, but you have to deal with that, all right?
I've come to terms that when I have amazing guests on.
Random people. I heard that.
Real friends, damn it. I'm going. Hang up.
No. But the topic always goes to crap. It's like it's a loose guideline, which I've learned. If there's more than one person, that happens. But that's
Talking about crap. Look at my pants. How cool are they?
Styling.
Those aren't pants. Those are underwear.
They're shorts, bro.
Rookie's just like
Australia. They're fish. Look at them. They got fish all over them.
Awesome.
All I've got is
saltwater
this fake mouth fish. By the way, this fish on this picture was a brilliant idea on this shirt. And I went up to him and said, how did you get away with that? Because they gave these away at Orlando. Number one, they had to give them away, but they had to pay Disney a licensing fee to put the ears on this fish. So this is a very valuable shirt. It's not just a t-shirt.
It'd be cool if it looked cool too.
Yeah, it's cool. It's got a little tail.
It's actually pretty. Yeah, that's cool.
I love it. It's a cool fish.
Aquariums. What do you guys think of them as a company? I think they seem to be stepping up a little bit. They seem to have recently popped up in the last few years. Is that correct?
Yeah, and they're making more and more videos.
Yeah, that's what I like. I don't see why more companies. There's There's one local store around my area that's actually started. They jumped on it. There's no one in Australia that owns a store that has access to doing all these maintenance jobs and all this reef-related stuff that was putting out videos. So they were smart enough to start their own channel. It's Gallery Aquatica TV.
Mhm.
They
They've
got a good channel, actually.
yeah,
I wish theirs on and
they've
off.
done really well. So they're a husband and wife that own a small little store about an hour north of me. And it just, you can tell how much people want that stuff. People want to see that stuff. You have access to all these amazing tanks and all this amazing reef stuff. So companies are stupid to not at least have a go at seeing if people want to watch what they're putting out. Even if
Yeah.
it's just mundane to you, what you do every day, it may be something that people are interested in learning.
Someone
It
will
just
learn
takes
something,
time.
right? It does.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Devin.
No, it 100%, right? Like it's a time and a commitment to build it and do it. But at the same time, if you're helping out other people, they're going to want to help you back in return, right? So it is a big benefit for stores to build that rapport and connection with their potential customers.
Exactly.
I
And you
see
look at
more and more doing it, and I'm really glad to see it. Coral View puts out great videos, and I love the videos Carlos does because he goes into the Apex programming, and he will show you line by line.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and then he goes, now let's do the virtual outlet, and he does that. He goes, now we're going to do this, and I'm like, man, he really covered it, and he's really good at that. And I
Yeah.
really like those kind of videos.
He goes pretty in depth.
Yeah.
right.
Flash can talking about low flow for a Ghani under a power head. Doesn't sound like low flow to me if it's right underneath it.
Well, if it's
Unless
under,
it's far. Yeah,
yeah,
but
it would
you
be
get the
more
suction,
intake
though.
than outgo.
Yeah, I guess you're getting the back current.
We weren't
But, like-
talking about that. We'd moved on to other things.
What?
Hey, this
Yeah,
is what
let's
this
go back
chat's
to drinking.
about. Now,
Mine's empty.
guys, you're offending us, all three of us, because we came here specifically to put entertainment onto you, to come and talk for you guys, and you haven't even hit the thumbs up. Come on, 18 thumbs up,
Ooh.
guys.
That's it.
That is not good
Aye.
enough. Come on, what are you
That's
Devin,
true.
you
doing?
need more than that.
I know.
We're
If
going
you're
to hell
having
if you
fun,
don't hit the thumb. If
you're
you don't
entertained.
enjoy it, what's the point?
It's
Hit
true.
the thumbs up, guys. Come on.
I got to figure out how I can do that. Hang on. Oh, I'd already had one. I gave you one before this thing started. Never mind. Same 18.
I
You're
like your
cheating.
attitude,
You're
Mark.
cheating.
That's awesome. Love it.
Now I forget how to get the chat back. I've lost it.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh well. I
Okay.
failed.
What is a dream wish list coral that you'd like to have that you don't have? Mark first. Go.
Well, my dream would be these master scolies. Oh
Mhm.
my god! And apparently in Australia they're like 25 cents each, and they just fall out of their pockets. But but I'm seeing them for thousands of dollars, so I have none because I
Makes sense.
couldn't possibly afford that.
Mark, you'd actually be surprised, mate. Recently, because of the demand, obviously, with Indo closing down. Look, there still is cheap scolies. Not saying that there isn't. I have 2 scalemias in that tank, which are about yay big, and one was $24, one was $12. But
Okay, that was my point.
but in saying that, in saying that, they came with bryopsis and also master scolies. Anything where you get kind of at least 5 colors, you're talking. It's so hard because certain stores will charge half the amount of others. So
Yeah.
some stores, you're literally looking at $800 over here for a good master scolie. There were certain scolies that I saw at Reef Stock that went for $3,500 over here.
Crazy.
So just keep that in mind, that like they're still expensive over here. Anything you got to remember, unless it's nice, it won't get exported. Now, not saying that there isn't nice corals in Australia that stay here, but for them to justify sending it overseas, it can't be a $10 scolie. So
Now
what you
behind
see
you, don't you have a red one up behind your left shoulder?
Yeah, there's an orange one there with some purple little stripes.
And what does that cost?
When I got it, it was only orange. It didn't have any purple stripes. And it was. Look, I've had that for probably 2 years now. So that was probably $40, $40,
How much?
$50, $40, $50.
Ridiculous.
I had a bright green one with yellow and red stripes. It had 2 mouths, and I ended up picking that one up for $60. But I had it for about 2 years, and then it started receding one day, and it just started receding. I tried to glue it to hold the actual skin down and whatnot, and no, it just literally within a day, just there was all these green little floaty bits all over my tank.
dang.
It was devastating.
Do you spot feed yours, or do you feed them?
I haven't fed my tanks in a long while. I got some coral gumbo probably about 3 months ago, and it's still yet to be used. So we'll put it that way.
Okay. So I am a big proponent of feeding my corals. I don't spot feed very often, once in a while, but for the most part, I just dump in food and broadcast feed the whole tank.
I am in my display, not so much in quarantines, because quarantines with big colonies, they come with a lot of nutrients. So it's just, it can be hard.
This one here has no nutrients. You need it in Australia. So it's by Benapets. It's called Barrier Reef, and it's a powder that you mix up with salt water for like 5 minutes. It smells like peat moss. Yeah, I know. It smells like peat moss. You mix it up for 5 minutes, and you put it in the tank, and it feeds everything. And you could make it a slurry, like put it in a ketchup. You know, like, do you have a ketchup bottle in Australia? It's a plastic bottle with a nozzle, and you squeeze it like ketchup. I don't know if you have those, but you can put food like that when scorch or corals.
In Neanderthal days, we don't have squeeze.
I didn't think you'd have them. I really didn't. You knew what I was talking about.
Of course, we've got tomato squeeze bottles, man. What do you think we are? We're upside down, but we're not that backwards.
The spouts on the bottom in Australia, not the top.
You turning red over there, Mark. I'm meant to be the one sweating. It's 32 degrees here.
No, that's one way. You can target feed with that squeeze bottle with a thicker mush, or you can broadcast, which is what I do my tank twice a week. I love it. I just pour it in after lights out. Next day the tank's clear, and it doesn't add nitrate, doesn't add phosphate. That's why I like that brand.
Why do you do it after lights out?
Because I've already fed the fish just before lights out, and so the food and the water opens up the corals even more. They're ready, and I can just drop it in after lights out, and plus I don't have to look at a cloud.
Okay, so I tend to just do it all at once. Like I'll probably... Okay, so my staple is usually frozen mysis. I don't rinse it. I throw in everything because all those little bits of particles I just see as free coral food.
I agree.
So I do that. And then a couple times a week, I'll mix in the Benefits or the Reefroids or the Reef Nutrition or Fido, like the varieties of spice of life. Like I don't necessarily have one go-to. I like to mix it up. Yeah. And a couple times a week, I'll dump in coral feed and feed it, just broadcast feed the whole tank. I shut off my return pump for about 40 minutes. So it keeps that food just circulating throughout the tank, and it gives all those polyps a chance to catch it. And I find that goes a long way. Part of it's because I don't want to like waste all my food into my filter roller. I'd rather it stay in the tank. So I have a nice long feed mode, lots of time for stuff to catch it. And I do find when you feed a lot of the corals, you can get some better colors out of them. Certain ones are happier. Like there's certain corals like dendros or scullies and stuff. I find, they'll get better coloration when you feed them. So just reading Dan just said too, I noticed lots of benefits of feeding a lot. So I 100% agree. As long as you don't have a nutrient issue, I think it's beneficial, a couple times a week to give those corals a meal on top of their sunshine.
Like us. We need food, but if you eat too much, you're going to get fat. So there's certain corals I find that specifically need to be kind of target fed. But in general, broadcast feeding is, I feel, the way to go, because that's kind of, as long as the flow isn't too strong while feeding, I feel like corals just take what they need. Yes, it's one of them things, isn't it?
Yep. Okay, Thanos is saying we have one in our tank, or one tank that's tubastria. We feed probably 20 to 30 times a day.
Wow.
That's
amazing.
Every 40 minutes, you're like, bloop, snack.
I'm so impressed. I want to see the water parameters.
Rookie, how often do you feed yours?
Never. No. Look, I do feed my tanks once in a while, but I haven't for probably about a good month.
So you have no fish?
I have a coal tang and 2 clownfish in that tank. I do want to get some fish for them systems, but this isn't sticking around. This is just a tank that I built just the other day. I've got a tank that is out in the garage that I'm getting finished up, and that quarantine will probably get shut down, that one there too. But everything's just growing. I'm getting really good colors out of SPS in like a 70-liter system. So I'm kind of just, that one's been up for about 3 years. So I'm thinking of keeping it up and just putting more tanks in here. But fish are good. I just hate them. They're assholes. Sorry. My God. They can be.
Now, because it's Halloween Eve. Hey, wait, question. One, just because it's that, you should give your corals some lovely trick-or-treats. Now, second question, completely unrelated. On New Year's Eve is like the night before the day. Christmas Eve is the night before the day. But Halloween Eve, they consider Halloween. Technically, today would be Halloween Eve. I'm saying Eve because they call Halloween Eve tomorrow night. I don't get it. Anyways, random tangent.
That's important to get this correct. The reason there's no Eve is because Halloween always happens at night, because it has to do with witches, and they only come out at night, somewhere around a full moon, ideally. So if you had an Eve, it'd be like throwing the witches way off schedule.
That's true. We don't want to confuse our witches.
No, we want our witches to be on target.
Well, it's actually Halloween today here. So no, I mean, I'm from the future.
You are.
I just realized we got our futuristic guy here. What are the lottery numbers?
Just wait, I'll check. Don't you wish it was that easy, my friend?
I would love that. We can split it 50-50.
I'd be doing it myself. There's no sharing. What are you talking about?
What? You are from the future. This is interesting.
It's 10:30 a.m.
Oh my gosh. It's 5:30 the day before here.
That's why I'm not joining Mark with a beverage.
7:30 over here. Come on, drink up.
Yeah, that's fair logic. And I'm going to experiment with dosing liquid foods next. I've always thought.
I think the best shows are always with liquor.
So
yeah, probably true.
Fans listening, obviously, do you dose any aminos, any kind of any products that are liquid form? You've just said that you want to start dosing liquid foods. You don't use any actual additives like your aminos or your color ups or your ions and all these additives, do you?
I believe on his last stream, because I did watch it, I believe he was saying he has started dosing aminos and does notice a difference, but I'll let you know if it responds. Okay. Randy just responded. Halloween is the eve of All Saints Day. Thank you, Randy. That makes more sense now.
Very professional.
I appreciate that, actually, because I was seriously pondering this. I was legitimately pondering, how does this work? Okay. That makes perfect sense. 12:30 a.m. in the UK, 5:34 in the Bay Area. Aminos are the real deal. Yeah,
I am so glad that Halloween isn't a big thing over here. Like, some people take it a bit more serious, but it's definitely nowhere near as big as America. I have a long, steep driveway, so no kids come down my driveway, so I don't have to buy.
Well, you could go out to the end and drop candy.
I could, but I got better things to do.
Okay, I normally love Halloween, and I would go all out decorating. I love it. I love scaring children. I have a lot of fun with it. This is the first time I'm not, only because I'm going to be on a plane tomorrow night, not home.
Yeah.
But I love it. That's fine.
I wonder if on the plane they'll hand out candy instead of cookies.
I'm going to see if I can trick or treat at the stewardess desk and see if I get any cookies. Maybe. We'll find out. I don't think they'd let me through customs with a mask and Scotch. It'd be a bad idea. I get jumped. Okay.
Good luck.
Amino acids.
Film it.
Yeah, curious as to what brand he's actually using. So, Than, what brand do you currently use for your aminos? We have quite a few Australian companies over here. We have Reef Anabolics, we have Coral Essentials, we have quite a few new ones popping up, and they all seem to be doing pretty well. Coral Essentials, I've noted, is over in America and the UK specifically. I know the owners of that. AcroPower, yeah, I do like AcroPower. It has kind of been the one go-to from day one.
So what he was saying, where did I just read it? We used it for months. Things look great. Ran out, was lazy, didn't reorder. Months later, got another bottle. 40 hours, I could tell the difference. So wow. I have another buddy, one of my local buddies, that he swears by them too. He doses like 15 mils a day, and he swears there's a huge difference from using and not using. I use them on and off. I probably never dose as much as I should. I just randomly dose it and forget about it, and then I go back and forth. But yeah, I know some people that absolutely swear by them.
You should.
I'm worse than Devin. I forget. I just don't do it. I have them here, and I'm like, oh yeah. And it's like, what's it been, 6 months? Let me put some in.
Aqua Vitro fuel. That seems to be a fairly common one over there. You should see. I haven't been game to try it yet, but the Coral Essentials company I was previously talking about, they've bought out a range of bottles. Now, each bottle is $99. It's called Black Label or something like that. And they've got a Grow Aminos and something else. I haven't been game to try that, but you should see some of the colors they're getting out of these corals. It's insane.
Here's another one I have. Reef biofuel. Everything I have is in a gallon bottle.
The one thing about Brightwell, I love Brightwell as a company. I just get confused when I go to buy a certain product because they'll have 10 of the same product. So
They
it's like,
do.
okay, this one says it does this. This
Mhm.
one says it does the same, but it does it not looking at you. And this one does it standing upside down. And this one does it the other way. It's a bit confusing.
There is an overlap. I agree with you.
All right. So speaking of overlap and confusing, so I just asked Dan because I was curious if he knows the difference in brands. He says he cannot tell the difference with the brands. I know the biggest difference that I see, like most amino acids are very similar. It's just how potent they are, right? So some might be a little watered down, so you can dose more of it, or the more concentrated, you dose less of it. But at the end of the day, like amino acids are amino acids. Like I don't know how much you can change it. Like there's probably different proteins you can. Kind of interesting.
Right. No, I think they're all one kind. I remember 100% pure reef is down there in Australia. And Peter gave me a bottle of his amino acids. He was super proud of me, like, you got to use this. It's amazing. And then a year later says, did you use them? I'm like, I still have them. Because it's one of those things I just forget about. It just doesn't even occur to me. I think about feeding and make sure there's light and flow and maybe clean out some algae. And that's about that's as much as a hobbyist that I am.
There's so much of a markup on everything. I'm actually curious as to how close like the aminos you could get for obviously bodybuilding and all these kind of things.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how close these things are. Obviously, they're getting these sources from somewhere, and it's it'd be interesting to DIY aminos.
I mean, if they're human grade, you would think tank grade is just, if
Yeah,
it's safe for a person.
I
Yeah,
gotta start doing some experiments.
do it. Let us know. Okay, quick thing in the chat. Someone said, be careful using GFO works real quick. 100% agree. In my early days of reefing, I used too much and I starved my tank from phosphates and my corals were not happy. I learned that lesson. So GFO works extremely well, but just don't overdo it. It's better to use less and you can always add a little more down the road or give a little more flow. But I always just use a minimal amount with very minimal flow and then you can work it up from there. Don't do too much too fast. Bad things happen. Corals get angry.
It's the same with anything. You kind of
That's true.
Everything's good in small doses. I find now it may not be true because these companies obviously do. Some companies do R&D and they can figure out how much is the perfect amount and write it on a bottle. But I'll always normally use less of a dose of something because these companies are in the business of making money. They're going to try and sell you more products. So it's one of them things I don't want to be using more than I have to. So just with GFO, as you were saying, I only personally use, if I'm using it, kind of half the amount that the packet suggests, maybe 2/3. I would never go the full way. People have had problems with fish running it long term and all sorts of stuff. So
yeah, same thing with ozone too. I tell people less is more. Use just enough. Don't overdo it. Just enough to achieve the results that you need. Good way to go. Speaking of, do either of you run ozone at all? Out of curiosity,
I don't.
No.
I don't run GFO or ozone
No.
or UV.
I've never used UV.
Well, UV and ozone are practically the same thing. Ozone's just a much more substantial source of it. Look, my local fish store does, and that's great. That's on their fish systems. That's one thing I would suggest for anyone kind of looking to buy fish if they're new in the hobby. A place that runs ozone or UV is going to be cleaner than one that doesn't and have less parasites, less problems with your fish. So that's something to look out for. I've always been curious about running a UV and seeing how much easier it would make tank maintenance, but you look at all these small ones for $100, they're not going to do anything. You need kind of a $500 unit to actually make a dent and do the job properly. So
No, it's true that.
I'm a budget reefer.
That's fair. Hey, my ozone was like $50 from China. It was super cheap and budget, but I basically just use it to get that like crystal clear fish are floating type of look.
Still doing something, obviously.
Yep, still working. Still gives me a couple hours a night. Fish neurotic. Anyone still in the biopellet camp? I've never used biopellets. They've always scared me.
Yeah, they scare the hell out of me. Hey? You hear so many issues. You hear so many issues with them. So many issues. And look, someone old school like Mark, have you ever run biopellets?
Yeah, I ran them for 2-3 years.
What are your thoughts?
Is it scary?
They did the job. You tend to see cyano appear in your tank a little more often when you run biopellets. Depending on the brand of biopellets, you could end up with this weird like brown dust or what they call mulm, MULM, sitting on the sand bed. And you just take your hand and move it over, and the dust floats up and comes right back down. And you're like, what is this crap? And why won't it go away? You know, it's annoying. And I switched to the stuff from Coral View called biospheres. They're like little round pearls. And those don't do the mulm for whatever reason. And I used that for a long time to control nitrates in my tank.
Nice. So the one cautionary tale with biopellets is if your power goes out, the water in there gets really funky. And if your power kicks back on and it dumps that water in your tank, bad things can happen. I think that's the main reason that I've always avoided it, because it just seemed like a unnecessary risk to me.
That's a huge thing. I mean, that's not a minor thing. If you happen to run them and you lose the power like you just described, look at them. They will turn colors. They will turn gray like death, like a dead body, because everything in there has died of anoxia. And then you turn them on and you're literally putting, let's just call it sulfur. It's poison. And all that stuff flows in your tank and it starts killing your reef because you didn't disconnect it. So biopellets need to have flow at all times, even if they're plugged into a battery backup to keep them tumbling, you know what I mean? I know it sounds a little overkill, but it's the smart move. Or disconnect, dump out, and start a new batch as soon as the power comes back on.
But what are the odds you're home when the power comes back on?
That's the trick.
That's why
Trick
I
or
never
treat.
used them. So yeah, that reason right there is why I never use them.
Yeah, excess bacteria I like to stay away from, vodka dosing, all these sources. I personally ran into a massive issue when I was probably only about 6-8 months into, I was probably about a year into reefing, but I'd previously mixed up some calcium, some DIY calcium chloride, and I'd had it sitting there and ready to dose in a vodka bottle. Now I'd cleaned this vodka bottle out fairly well, so I thought. And I'd left it to the side because I was like, I start dosing calcium, and I kept dosing calcium. Now I run a salt with a 500 calcium, so it's always fairly high, and it was never dropping. So I didn't start dosing calcium. And it wasn't until about 6 months down the track that I kind of went, oh, I need to start dosing calcium. So I used the same container. Now, I didn't have any issues until the end, but at the end of that bottle, that whole quarantine system there, it had about $800 worth of acro colonies in it, all gone. Literally every single coral in that tank melted overnight, because at the bottom of the dosing bottle, little did I realize there was about this thick of brown bacteria that had built up over the last year and a half. And it was dosing straight bacteria into the tank. And that's all I can put it down to, because there was literally nothing else. No, like, yeah. So that's one thing
weird.
to watch out for.
Crazy, sketchy.
Sketchy.
It is sketchy.
Hey, I've been wanting to ask you both, what is your closest fish store? Like if you had to go there, how far is it to walk or drive there?
5 minutes.
Walking or driving?
Driving. Walking 20 minutes.
Okay.
25, something like that.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Mine is down the street. I can literally be there in, I don't know, 3 minutes by walk, 1 minute by car. It's truly a local fish store. It's awesome.
Nice.
I'm lucky.
Sadly, they've been perishing some of the smaller LFSs. There's like a couple like the big chain ones, but the little ones have been dwindling down a bit. So the next closest one's like 45 minutes away type of deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, now, while we're comparing notes, what salt? Oh, wait, we didn't hear Ricky's store. Where's your store?
I was going to say it'd be dangerous if I had 3 minutes down the road. Trust you and me.
Mine has no coral, so it's safe.
Yeah. I was going to say each one of my local fish tank stores has about 10-foot tanks with corals in them. So, look, probably about 15 minutes for my local one. And I have probably about 5 stores, maybe a few more within an hour.
Nice.
Okay. I feel like flying to Australia with a waterproof suitcase to come home with scolies that are $24 each.
Sounds like a good
Trust me,
investment,
it's
Mark.
not worthwhile. You get caught
It
with
would
that
be
stuff.
amazing. Come home with a bunch of scolies and throw them in my reef and just say, not sharing with anyone.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't sell corals.
The horde.
Trust me, I feel the same way about some of the corals you guys have access to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So lucky.
Crazy. There so many other things. Okay. I think I am going to cut it off pretty quick because we've actually been on for quite a while today. Oh, an hour and 45 minutes. And I still have to wash clothes and pack and all this stuff because I fly out in the morning. But I do thank you both for coming on today for the completely random coral stream. It was good. It's been ages since I've done kind of a group one. They're kind of fun. I think I do them like once a month or something because they're good times.
It's been good. Thank you very much for having us. Sorry we didn't stay on topic.
You guys did fine. It was a good stream. So,
Bye, candy. Trick or treat.
There we go.
And
Mark's got you
happy
covered.
Halloween because I'm a Disney nut. And
Nice.
I appreciate that we did sweet and scary. That was brilliant.
Thank you. You inspired that idea. Good work.
No, I didn't think of the scary part at all. That was completely on you. That was great.
It is Halloween though.
Scary zoas. Scary zoas.
Right, paleotoxins, scary. Don't lick your corals. Remember that. Don't lick your corals and don't boil anything from your tank. Terrible idea.
There you go.
Those are your takeaways for the today. All right, guys. If you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up button. Mark, Rookie, thank you guys so much for coming on today, and I'll see you guys in next week's stream.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Bye.
Take care, guys.